This is Lady Anne, owner of KPNL Radio and hostess of the Caravan Library of Lore, and I support Tessa. As an experiencer myself, I have filed my own reports with them, and the professionalism and heart they have shown my case goes above and beyond. If you have had an experience, I cannot recommend Tessa enough.
Hi, this is Ernie Hudson, Winston's and more from Ghostbusters. I want to let you know that Ryan Stacy, he's created the Experiencer Support Association, TESA. You can check them out at www.tesacan.org. Now, they investigate paranormal, UFO, and provide support to experiencers. But you can check them out at, like I said, www.tesacan.org and see for yourself if they're really Ghostbusters. I can tell you this, they are a non-profit organization. Good luck, have fun, and keep it blessed.
Good evening. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, a podcast by the Experiencer Support Association. Tessa is a UFO, paranormal, and paracryptid investigation association. We investigate everything belonging to the global phenomenon linked to highly strange and unexplained experiences. We also connect experiencers with other experiencers, creating a safe, positive environment to engage and discuss this phenomenon without judgment, criticism, or retribution. From the land of the white rolling sands on the southeasterly tip of Georgian Bay, to all of you listening around the world, as we simulcast live on KPNL Radio, we salute you. If you want to go back and listen to our previous episodes, go to youtube.com/the Experiencer Support Association. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button and ring that bell to be instantly notified when we are live, not only for these episodes, but every single element Tessa has to offer. On our website, tessacan.org, we have something for everyone. We have support for experiencers, data for independent researchers, and places to advertise for professional partners. Hello, everybody. Today is Thursday, July 22nd, 2021, and I, Ryan Stacy, am your host this evening. Remember, Super Chat, click that $sign next to your name in the comment box. All donations go back into the mission. If you're catching this on the replay, please consider becoming a member and unlock bonus content, including behind-the-scenes bloopers and extended footage on new project developments. Just click the big blue button that says Join. Our guest for Season 3, Episode 24, is Lorien Fenton. Lorien became actively involved in the San Francisco Bay Area UFO community after almost dying from a mysterious form of pneumonia during the H1N1 scare in the summer of 2009. It was that near-death experience which propelled her into doing the work she loves in a community that she has been passionate about her entire life. Currently, Lorien is the Marin, Sonoma MUFON Section Director, holding meeting in Petaluma, California. Lorien's current real job occupations include web designer, bookkeeper, and a conference producer. The Bay Area UFO community knows her as the lady who produces UFO CON, held annually in February in the San Francisco Bay Area. Her internet radio show of over a decade is The Fenton Perspective on Revolution Radio at www.freedomslips.com, Studio A, which airs Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Lorien is in the process of transitioning into internet-based television with her soon-to-be-launched Make Contact TV network. You can find out more about Lorien on her website at lorienfenton.com. So that's LORIENFENTON.com. All right, Lorien, put on your tinfoil hat.
I almost wore mine. It's in the other room. I actually own a tinfoil hat.
Really? You should have.
Yeah, I got it from John Lear. He gave it to me many years ago. It's a top hat made out of tinfoil. It's really cool. If we take a break, I'll go get it and put it on.
All right, we'll hold you to that. All right, well, thank you so much for being here. I know it was troublesome to get here and all the things lined up, and you're here, so I really do.
It's been a wild week, Ryan. That's all I got to say. Wild week.
Troubling times. Okay, so we're going to start the night off with the icebreaker from Tim, the Demon Guy Morrison. So Tim, the Demon Guy Morrison, will write an icebreaker. I'm opening it for the first time right now. I'm going to ask you this question.
I feel like I'm on the Johnny Carson show.
Well, who knows? Who knows what's going on here? And he says, if you had to be haunted by a ghost for the rest of your life, but could choose which dead person the ghost would be, who would you choose as your ghost?
Oh, God, I'm going to start crying. This is a really... I've thought about that every day since my boyfriend, when I was 22 years old, killed himself.
Oh, jeez.
And so there you go. There's the answer to that. It would be the love of my life, who's long since dead, 40 years now, 40 some odd years. And that's a good question. So
would you want
actually, I got to say, he has been haunting me since he died. So, I mean, I guess it's the true thing going on with me that it's a great question.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's elaborate on that. How is he haunting you?
Well, to be honest with you, I know a bit about ghosts because I've seen them most of my life. Besides being the UFO gal, I didn't even really get... Okay, I guess we're going to have to go way back. My claim to fame that I really stood by most of my life is the fact that I am probably very psychic and a great manifester. I manifested a rabbit when I was about 6 years old, just because and if people who know my story know this, I was truly in love with this rabbit at a county fair. And we were driving home and I prayed and I felt this weird sensation go through my body as I was praying. And the next thing I know, there's a rabbit that matched the rabbit back at the state fair or the county fair, sitting in our driveway when we got home. The exact same rabbit. Okay. And my grandmother, very psychic woman, looked at me, and from that moment she knew I was the one who got the gift in the family, because 21 grandkids and I'm the only one manifesting rabbits out of thin air, right? You know, praying for them and they pop up. So that's kind of where I started. And from that point on, I was treated very differently in the family. Both grandmothers were psychic. One was an Italian, she was a card reader. She was like a tarot card reader for the community. And if anything happened in the community, everybody went to her first. Like, you know, I met this guy. Are we going to get married? You know, how many kids am I going to have? You know, that kind of stuff. And so she knew I also was the one in the family who got the gift. And so there you go. I mean, out of, you know, there were, I think, 30 grandkids on both sides of the family and everything. And I'm the one who ends up, you know, doing things. So bottom line, I'm what they call a precog. I can see the future. I know what's going to happen. I also know when people are lying through their teeth. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I had a big discussion last night with one of my best friends who's an experiencer, and we were talking about how most experiencers have this. It's kind of like it's a superimposed a curse, I want to say, that the ETs give you when they tune you up to talk to them, which, by the way, every experiencer on this show tonight that's listening knows you cannot communicate with ET until they've actually tapped you and tuned you up so that you can connect to their frequency or their consciousness or whatever it is we're connecting with. So every one of us know that, but there's byproducts to that. The byproduct for me was I'm uber psychic, and all the people I've talked to that have had this happen, they're uber psychic. And the other problem is you can tell when people are just lying through their teeth. I mean, I go to these conferences and I see these guys on stage and I'm like looking at them going, you made this all up. This is all a lie. You just know. And the funny part is a lot of the, I'm trying not to categorize people here, but a lot of the people who have contact with the Greys and are in what I call the baby making experiment, the hybrid experiment, they seem to be a little more blinded to what's going on around them in the community as to the people who are having contact with the mantis beings, the humanoid beings, the Plagiarans, the Palladians, the Galactic Federation guys. There seems to be some kind of blinders on the people that are dealing with the Greys and maybe the reptilians and maybe the mantids exclusively. Okay, because they're my friends who always say, oh no, it's fine, that guy's fine, there's not a problem. But then you talk to somebody like Chris Bledsoe or Whitley Strieber, who's dealt with several types of beings, and you talk to these people who are not just exclusively being used by the Greys for an experiment. They have this ability to just know things out of the blue. And I don't know if it's the tune-up process for different types of beings that give you different gifts or whatever it is. Anyway, I'm saying I've noticed it, and I'm wondering if anybody else out there has noticed that. So that's my question to you guys, is if you're dealing with just the Greys, are you kind of the guy at the conferences that goes, oh yeah, everything's great, I love everybody and everything's fine? Or are you one of these people who go, God, this is kind of crazy because half of this isn't true, it's got a weird tick to it. So anyhow, I'm just wondering if people out there have started noticing these things.
No, I appreciate that. That's good.
Back to the ghost question.
Yes.
I'm going to tell you guys the whole story about him because I think it's important people understand that contactees are also given the gift of being very psychic, and being psychic also means that you have a tendency to look into different dimensions on some level, whether it be consciously or with your eyes, or if it's on a physical level or whatever it is, you have that gift and you can't shut it down. You have to learn to live with it and deal with it and enjoy it, So here's what happens. I meet this guy. We are madly in love, and at least I was madly in love with him. I'm pretty sure he was me too. And he was an artist, and little did I know, but he had planned on killing himself the night I met him, and then he didn't because he met me. So long story short, we end up having a relationship. We move into a house together, and he was very sick. And I didn't know this at the time, but he had severe migraines to the point where it was just like 5 days a week. He was flat out in bed. Excuse me. And he couldn't function very well, and it was getting hard on him. And being an artist and painting all the time, it was draining on him. So I knew he was going to kill himself. I already knew this. I just was trying to stop it at every turn. Finally, one morning I woke up and I was heading off to Portland Community College. I grew up in Portland, and I was going off to my acting class at the time. And I knew, he got in his car and he said, I'm going to the beach. I'm going to go painting and I'll see you in a couple days, whatever. I said, fine. I knew he was, very seriously going to either kill himself or not. It was, it was very close to the edge. And I looked in the rearview mirror and I knew it was the last time I was probably going to see him. And I was really upset, but I thought, well, you know what? everybody has to make that choice. I can't stand here every day trying to be, in his head. I'm not going to do this anymore. So basically, I psychically let him go. If you guys understand that, there's a point where you just, you say, I can't do this anymore. And psychically, I think he picked up on it. He went to the beach and he put a hose in the exhaust and killed himself. So I'm home that night and I'm asleep and I hear him come in the front door. And he comes in the front door. I see him. He sits on the bed right next to me and I'm half asleep. And I'm like, what are you doing back so soon? I thought you were going to be gone for a couple days. He goes, no. He goes, I just want to let you know I'm so sorry. And I go, what are you sorry about? He goes, I'm really sorry I did this. And I go, what do you mean you're sorry you did this? And he just kept saying, I'm really sorry I did this to you. I'm really sorry. And and it went on for like 30 seconds of him just saying that. And then I said, oh, we can talk about it in the morning. What'd you do? Wreck the car? I'm like, what? And I'm half asleep. So I just kind of said, we'll talk about it in the morning. And I rolled over and went back to sleep. Next thing I know, it's about 6 a.m. in the morning. I hear a pounding on the door and I wake up and I'm looking around. I don't see him anywhere. I think he's in the bathroom. And I go to the front door and it's two Oregon CHP officers. And they're telling me that they were sorry, but they found, my boyfriend dead at the beach and wanted to know if I was the right person to tell and, blah, blah, blah. Because there was a note with our address on it and my phone number, but they didn't call. They came. So I said, no, he's here. He's in the bathroom. And I went searching the house and I came out and they must have thought I was crazy because I just said, well, he came home last night. He can't be dead. And I didn't believe it. I really didn't believe it. I thought it was a joke. I was like, are you kidding me? He was right here, So that was his ghost coming. And he came to me about 3 or 4 more times. I'm not going to go into all the details, but he was as solid as you guys are looking at you on the screen. Seriously. The second and third time, I only saw him from the waist up, but it was absolutely solid, And just very interesting and got a lot of information out of him about his passing and what he was doing on the other side. And I'm not going to go into all the detail, but ghosts are very real. There's a whole dimension of people that can connect with you and how they do it. He explained to me about the second or third time he was dealing with me was that it has to do with connecting to their life force when they were here. I didn't understand it. I still don't quite understand it, but it has to do with our memory of them, how they can come back to us. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because if you don't have enough memory of them, if you don't have a conversation or a tie, a love connection, something very profound to keep that connection between the dimensions going, they can't come back to you. It's very difficult for them. You have to it's interesting. He said you have to initiate that process. He goes, we can want to come back all we want, but unless you want, if you're capable and willing to have me here, I can come back to you. Isn't that interesting? I always thought that was very profound. I haven't figured it out yet, but so if anybody out there does.
The energy, though, that's the draw, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
there
powerful.
has to be that. Yeah.
I'm really sorry that you had experienced that, but thank you for sharing that.
Well, yeah, I have no problem sharing it. You know why? Because it's part of life. Every one of us loses somebody to death, to suicide, to illness, to something, car accidents, you name it. And we have to have a way to close that door, especially if it's an accident or a sudden death. There has to be a way. I was so angry at him for a year. I cried for a year. I screamed at him. I yelled. I did the whole 9 yards. Even though I subconsciously, psychically knew he was going to kill himself, I knew it was coming. I still was pissed like anybody else would be. And I had to go through all the emotions of it. And I think that's why he came to me for that year pretty often, is because I was screaming out at him all the time. So So yeah, I want to reiterate, if you really want to talk to somebody who's passed over and you have a strong connection with them, and they have to have a strong connection with you too. I mean, they have to love you. They can't just hate your guts and want to come back and talk to you. So, don't expect miracles, but you can make
They
it
got to
happen.
decide where to. Well, they're spending the energy too, right? Gotta be
Exactly.
So,
They have to be worried about you. I mean, he was severely. Once he passed over, he knew he made a mistake, leaving his ex-wife, his kids, and me. He knew he made a mistake, but at least he had a way to come to me and tell me he was sorry about it. So there you go, atonement. Yeah.
Yes, I'm just scanning the comments because I feel like you're resonating with everybody on. Can you see the comments at all on your side?
No, I can't.
Okay.
How do I? Oh, wait. Maybe I can. Hold on. Let's see. We got it. Oh, yeah. There they are, popping up. I love it.
So everyone is really really engaging right now too. So I'm trying to decide where I want to go from that, and I blame Tim because that was like an oddball question. But you know what? That was a very good icebreaker.
He was very psychic doing that question. That was a good one.
So I want to come back to the precog when you mentioned that you're and we're talking about ufology. And remember when we talked to Space Air Radio where where this kind of led to this, we were kind of really getting into what may have happened. Disclosure, that document has come out. We're now here a few months, a month maybe so later. A bunch of things are going around. How confident are you with your bullshit detector? And are you willing? Do you want to throw some names out and have a chat, or where?
This disclosure thing is not disclosure. I mean, I'm sorry, you guys, but I can't stand this whole thing. It's starting to really grate on me. I mean, I found myself the other day sitting around going, it's all BS, like you're saying. These guys are trying to control a narrative, and that narrative has nothing to do with contactees or the truth. Okay, that's all to do with military and money and trying to take control of a situation they'll never be able to take control of because number one, they're not contactees. They can't even get close to it, let alone control it. And the only way they're going to control it is by letting us take charge. The contactees have to be the people in charge of this. And I'm not saying all contactees are perfect for the job. I'm just saying if you leave it to us to deal with the ETs and try to make a connection through to the rest of the world in a really profound manner through our books, our communication, TV shows, radio shows, whatever, that's really where people need to be seeking the truth. Is through contactees who are doing this kind of virtual world. And that's the only way it's going to happen because we've got a lot against us, guys. I mean, we've got the Christian faith who thinks they're all demons. We've got the military who thinks they're all trying to eat us, apparently. And maybe they are, but it isn't this species that I deal with. And maybe not the Greys in particular. I don't think the Greys really... I think they're in a stage where they're kind of, non-pulsed about us. We're a project. They're dealing with us, and they're just one group, There's many, many groups of ETs out there. And there's a lot of ETs on this planet. People don't realize that. We have people like Cynthia Crawford. I'll bring her up, for example. She is now passed on, but she was a hybrid. I was literally standing in front of her with Barbara Lamb and two other women when her eyes turned into slits. And we asked her how it happened, how she felt when it happened. And she goes, I felt a pressure behind my eye and I'm very emotional when it happens. And I'm like, wow, that's so cool. I mean, we've got people all over this planet that are half alien. And I wouldn't doubt that anybody who's got Rh negative blood or some type of strange blood in their body or different kind of whatever makeup to it, we've probably been injected with some kind of alien DNA along the road. And so here we sit.
I said more recently.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just, and so if for them to think that they're informing us or they're going to have control of the narrative, sorry, it's groups like yours that are going to make the difference. It has nothing to do with the military or whatever. And this is where the contactees will go. This is where all the people who have seen a UFO are going to go. And don't fool yourself, folks. If you've seen a UFO, you've had contact. There's just no getting around it, whether it's just a slight fraction of a second of telepathic communication, or if it's just your optical nerves actually giving you the ability to see that ship. That wasn't gifted to you as a human. That was gifted to you by the ETs. There's no way you can see that ship unless an ET has tuned you up to see it. It's that simple. I don't care what anybody says. I'll be standing in a group of 20 people and only 3 of us can see the ship. You know, and those 3 people inevitably always have Rh negative blood, and they are, you know, lifelong contactees. And then the rest of them are just oblivious and don't know what's going on. And it's not their fault. They're just basically human. They've been bred to be here this way, and they've been bred not to acknowledge the presence of it. And trust me, folks, and here's the real kicker to all of this. This is really the bottom line. Mind control plays a major part in all of this, a huge part, because those people, those 16 or 17 people standing there in that group of 20, they could see that if the mind control part of the consciousness connection was lifted. There's a lock in our brain for the normal human being that they have put in place. All the ETs, somehow they all put this in place where if we've seen them, we've forgotten them. If we have forgotten them, we may never see them. I mean, there's just things that they do. And then some of us are either lucky or cursed enough to actually see them. And they say, okay, I want to communicate with that one the rest of their life. And they turn it on, and there you go. It's that simple. And the government knows this. Everybody knows this who's researched it. So every scientist out there who says I'm an ET researcher, if they don't know that one piece, they're not an ET researcher. Don't follow them.
How do we prove it?
We can't yet. We can't yet, but I know they're very close to it because we've gotten to the point with AI and virtual reality where I think we're getting very close to understanding how the mechanism of consciousness turns on and off within our electrical system called our brain. Okay? And there's something else that's really important. I want everybody to think about this that's listening to this today. I have a very good friend who is an engineer. He is also a major contactee. When he was looking at the gray that was talking to him about this whole subject I'm bringing up right now, he looked into the gray's eye, and it was that black, glossy, glowy kind of eyeball. But he also noticed that within the eye, it was like the fly's eye, where they have all the little segments in it. Underneath all that glowing, beautiful glossiness, there is a fly's eye structure, and there may be 200 separate little sections. And what the ET told him was that within every little section, we have a little brain connected to an optical nerve in our head. So they've got like 400 smaller brains in their little head, their little gray heads. And by having 400 connections instead of 2, these guys can connect with each other. They can connect across the universe and time and space. They can connect with a whole galaxy if they wanted to. If you get 3 of them together, they can fly ships without being on them. They can dematerialize your body through electrical, I don't know how they do it, but it's done through some type of scientific method for them. And their brain power is exponential. I mean, can you imagine having 400 brains in your head? What you could do with it? I mean, I'd be like, I would never have to talk again. I could just communicate across the world with my brain. So think about that for a while, you guys. And the difference, here's the final part to that. The difference between a brain like that and ours, we will never be able to catch up with them. So I'm not even trying anymore. I used to think, oh, I want to be able to, talk to them and deal with them and understand them and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And whenever they communicate with me, it's so profound. I mean, it's so far beyond. I come back into my body and in my reality and wherever I'm at here. And I'm like, how do I even explain what just happened to me? I mean, I just got the answers to the universe in a fraction of a second. I got a download where I know how everything connects and everything works. And I'm talking to God, basically. Okay. And then within a minute and a half, I'm dumb as a post again because my brain can't handle it. It doesn't have the capability of ever understanding that level of intelligence, communication, consciousness, what have you. So there's the problem. We're always going to have that big leap. It's like God and a dog. We're the dog and they're God. And it's just, there's no way we can bridge that gap except for with, and here's the key word, you guys all know it's coming, love. Love is the only thing that bridges that gap.
One of the main challenges too is that this is an individual exploration too. So the challenge, it is challenging to have all this happen to you by yourself. And I think what's important is that not just unity, but everybody trying to make or do as much as they can with that brain power at the same time for that common goal. And we wouldn't have so much challenge if we were to do it together.
Oh, yeah. See, I've thought about that a lot.
So,
Ryan, what you're bringing up is like the groups that sit around and pray together, thousands of people worldwide at the same time praying and changing something. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine what we could do if we got a whole bunch of ET contactees together? Oh, okay. I'm going to give you guys an example. You're talking about the people who do the Zendras that Grant Cameron talks about and the guys down in Peru have been doing for years. They all get together. They don't eat meat. They meditate. They do whatever. Then they decide on a place and a time that the ETs have told them to be at. And they get together and suddenly the ETs all appear to them. And as a group, they experience them together. And here's the cool part about that I think is really interesting is you're talking about individual contact and it's different for everybody. And we all have our own personal experiences. What they have done is they're meeting one ET or maybe 1,000 ETs in one form. And to each one of them, the contact is different, but it's the same ET. I find that fascinating. And I can correlate that to my dead boyfriend because one of the experiences I had, his daughter was sleeping in a room with me. We both saw him. He had a different message for both of us at the same time. And I didn't hear hers and she didn't hear mine. So they're working in the same consciousness field, the ET, that dead people are working in. So who knows that they aren't in the same sphere together there? Different plane, different dimension, who knows? What was the question?
Remember how I mentioned the ultra spectrum on that Spaced Out Radio?
Oh yeah, that was very interesting. Explain what that is for you, because I'm still trying to grasp it.
Yeah, so the ultra spectrum is our way of reclassifying the phenomenon. So we basically have evolved the Hynek and Vallée classification scale to include psychogenic, so any psychic consciousness events. And so the ultra spectrum, when we're measuring that, what we want to do is we're trying to establish, like you're mentioning before, is people are having contact, but they're seeing it in their mind. And just because they're seeing it in their mind doesn't mean it's not valid. It just means we can't prove it in the material world. So within the ultra spectrum on how it's all connected, which is through the consciousness, the strength comes in numbers, where through our research, talk on things that you mentioned earlier, we are tracking people's blood types. We are tracking, if they divulge that, of course, we are keeping track of whether the event was invited or uninvited or of the mind. And statistically, it shows that the RH negatives are the experiencers and it's psychogenic contact. And that gets backed up with drawings and other paranormal events that happen in their timeline. So it would start with paranormal, or sometimes majority of it starts with contact, and then there's abduction or ET. Then as they progress and evolve in age, we get these psychic abilities, and then we get these paranormal things, and we get all this other stuff, and then now we're here, and then we're now reporting for the first time. But then they're talking about all these things separately. And what we do with the ultra spectrum classification system, what that is to group all of these events under all the phenomena, so that way we can understand the experiencer and to understand why they are having contact with anything, period. And once we figure out what makes the ideal candidate or experiencer, we have an expo, we have a retreat, which is called Interconnected, which will be in 2022 here in Canada in October, where we're going to do exactly that, is invite and have special groups for those that we've investigated, that we can confirm are the best possible evidence, bring them all together and try and make contact, either through paranormal, through ET, through whatever means or methods that are common.
Right.
Compare the events, because if they're connected, because you probably, you're UFO MUFON. Okay, so you're MUFON. MUFON will not accept paranormal whatsoever.
Well, I got to tell you a little secret.
Okay.
They do if you tell them you're going to do it at your meeting, because I just had my annual Skywatch.
Yeah.
And we do all kinds of stuff, and I have ghost hunters, and I have all kinds of crazy people show up, and we saw the most amazing ships this year. They were, oh my God, I don't know what they were. They were wild. They were like orange balls way up in the atmosphere, making these swooping sea shapes, and with a tail on them, and they were spinning in circles like a pinwheel. It was just insane. None of us had ever seen anything like this. We got 5 of them that were just really low, I think, in the atmosphere. They were very big to the naked eye. I mean, it was quite wild. So I know that you guys can accomplish this. There's one thing I will tell you. Every time I try to bring out measuring equipment and scientific equipment to measure the experience or videotape it or whatever the heck you're trying to do, they turn all the equipment off. So I don't know how we're going to get these guys to let us videotape them. I know that Stan Romanek was able to get them to let him videotape them. And I don't know how he did it. To this day, Stan doesn't know how he did it. And since he's not talking anymore about it or dealing with it anymore, it's hard to find out what happened, actually. But there was a special connection between him and the ETs where they actually allowed all that filming to take place. I mean, for him to capture a gray on the back porch like that, looking in the, sliding glass window, mind-boggling. He's one of very few that have ever really captured the truth on film. And look where it got him, There's always that problem that the government's going to swoop in and ruin your life, once you start talking about it or showing it to people. So
it depends on what the goal is. The individual who has the experience doesn't need to have it documented on video or picture. They just need to.
That's right.
So this need to see it, and to prove it and to get that validation, like what's that all about? Where's that coming
from? Did I talk about this on the Spaced Out Radio? I don't know if I did, but I had a very interesting experience around the Stan Romanek movie called, I think you guys have all seen it, Extraordinary, the Stan Romanek story.
I don't know. I have to go back.
Well, if you haven't seen it, please, 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 every experiencer needs to watch that movie, because that movie is the reason Stan was attacked and now he is no longer in the community. Okay. That's why the military industrial complex went after this guy. Okay. Because there's actually a gray in the movie, and there's several, but there's a real one on the back porch. Okay. So the bottom line is, I was asking ET, why is it that they went after Stan? What's going on here? And they basically told me, they said, well, Stan is not the problem. The problem is it's actually the bad ETs are involved in this one. I go, really? And I go, how does that play out? So they put up a little experiment for me, and I didn't know I was the guinea pig, but I turned out I was, and here's what happened. I watched the Stan Romanek movie probably 6 times, and then I thought to myself one day after I'm talking to ET about all this, I said, oh, I'm going to watch the movie again. So I watched the movie, and while I was watching it, I did not see a gray alien on the back porch. I saw a black blobby thing with a couple of, glowing eyes. I did not see a gray alien. I did not understand it was a gray alien. My mind had completely switched off, and they had turned off my knowing there was a gray alien in that movie to the point where I didn't know there was one anymore in the movie. Okay? I literally it had been erased. I knew something was wrong. That much I knew. I knew I had forgotten something. I knew something was wrong. And I had another bout with them about memory, about ships, and we had another little class on that, and I'll tell you guys about that some other time. But this time they totally erased it. They erased that memory of seeing that gray on the back porch in the movie and the whole bit. And I watched it again, and still something was wrong. I couldn't figure out what it was. The third time I watched it, about a month later, I saw the gray alien. And then all the memories of watching it all those times before came back, that I had seen it. I'd seen the gray alien. I talked about it on my radio show, talked with Stan about it, the whole bit, right? All the memories came back that were associated with that movie and everything I'd done around it, which had been erased. Okay. I had no conscious memory of any of this, and then it's all back. Okay. So I'm sitting there talking to ET going, okay, seriously, you took all that away, you put it back. Why? What's the point of that? They go, don't you understand? They said, people that go watch that movie at the theater, only a few people can see the gray alien. They go, tell the guy who made the movie that. And then he'll understand why this movie never got any traction. It's because there's a mind control damper field on every human on this planet to keep them from understanding what is going on with ET, and that they're up in the sky probably all day long, and it's probably a freaking freeway up there. And we could see them. Some of us can see them periodically, once in a while, here and there, but it's just part of our mind control.
If they're controlling, who's controlling our minds?
Well, they keep telling me, they keep telling me there's not it's not necessarily evil. It's just that humans can't take this kind of input. Their brains can't handle it. So they just don't allow us to see them. Okay. And I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. In my opinion, it's like keeping the wolf at distance from the chicken coop, because the chickens get tense and freak out whenever the wolf is around them. Okay. So I see it as the same thing. And that's the feeling I got from ET about this whole thing, was that they do it for our protection in a lot of ways, because consciously we're not ready. We're not ready to see them being there all day long. So I call here. Let me finish the story. I called the guy who made the movie, and I said, Jack, I said, have you ever wondered why, when you played that movie in Florida at the film festival, half of the movie theater didn't go, oh my God, they're walking out going, did you see that gray alien? I mean, oh my God. You'd think that everybody in the theater would walk out going, aliens are real, the whole thing. He goes, it was so weird. He goes, we played the movie. Everybody said, oh, that was a fun movie. They saw the orbs, they saw the black shadows, whatever. But not one person said to me, oh my God, aliens are real. Those aliens are real, And I said, you think they would? I go, the ETs just told me that 90% of the people don't even see them in the movie. That's how mind controlled we are. He's like, oh my God. He goes, it makes total sense now. So there you go. That's my story about the Stan Romanek movie.
That's very, very interesting, because I'm seeing the comments. Everyone is commenting, saying they've seen it. They know exactly what you're talking about. I'm sitting here feeling like I must be under a rock because I haven't seen it. So I'm definitely gonna go and watch that now.
It truly is extraordinary. Those guys came up with a great title for it, because that's the only way to describe it.
What's the title again?
Extraordinary, the Stan Romanek story.
Okay,
it's on. You guys all know where it is. I think it's on Amazon and Netflix, and the usual suspects.
Like that too.
But yeah, I mean, this is a kind of, I don't know about you guys, but I've demanded. Here's what I've demanded, and I'll tell you guys something. I'm in control. Well, no, I'm not in control of my ETs. I shouldn't say that, but I have a relationship with them where I have laid down the law. I mean, I basically have said, no ugly, scary guys show up in my bedroom at night. We don't do that. We don't do any of this. If you guys want to talk to me, I mean, I've had angels. That's how I deal with them, is through angelic contact. And they have told me they are the angels at a different frequency. They're light beings. I mean, I get the light being dudes, okay? So anyhow, having said that, I told them, if you're going to invade my life and ruin my life the way you guys have by making me be a MUFON director, doing a radio show, doing all these things that make no money at all, and that I just have to spend all my time and energy on it, and I'm driving a 20-year-old car that's falling apart, and it's all your fault, you guys have to have a relationship with me where I get to understand why in the hell you are here and why you're bothering me. And I have had some of the most extraordinary experiences, I think, because I've laid down the law and said, you guys can't just manhandle me, into doing whatever. It ain't going to happen. And for some bizarre reason, I've had all kinds of great lessons. I've had downloads that are extraordinary. And they're all for me personally. I can't just share a lot of this stuff with you guys because it wouldn't mean anything to you. That's the other thing they taught me, is that every one of us who actually communicates with them on that level, and they use Tesla as an example. He did the same thing. He basically said, I want to have a relationship with you, and I will I'll do whatever you bid, but, you've got to help me too, And they gave him a lot of information on the ethers, the atmosphere, and how that all functions. And there was a two-way street going on with Tesla. And people need to realize that. Some of our most amazing scientists have had two-way streets with ET, in my opinion. Because they were smart enough to tell him, you're not going to ruin my life. You're not going to make me go crazy about God. And here's another very important piece. And I think everybody else on the show today is listening knows this. You cannot disregard God in this whole scenario. God plays an important part. In the ETs that I have dealt with, believe in a higher power, supreme being, consciousness type of AI that has created them and created the universe, okay? And they understand it differently. They understand it not like we do, where we do religions and cult type of, worship. Theirs is an understanding that it just is, and that they wouldn't exist without it. I know that sounds very simple, and they revere that in their own little way, because they don't worship it all like we do. They don't say, I'm giving my whole soul over to Jesus Christ kind of thing, because they know that you can't give your soul to anybody. You can only give your love to everything. That's it. And that's what they've taught me. So there you go.
The plane though, so there's us, and then there's God. There's them, and then their version of God. Is it us, then them, then God? Or is it us and them and God? Like, like, do we have?
Well, in the discussion I had with my angel,
Yeah.
I was basically told we're all equal in different dimensions.
Okay.
That the dimensions have different like we're a 3D reality solid, fat Italian girl sitting here, right? I mean, and then my light being my angel, it's totally light. I mean, it's just light and love, light and love. And our emotions are the same as their emotions, but we experience them completely different because they're within a consciousness structure that only can get them within our own reality. And when I say that, I mean individual reality, because we're not connected. That's why I honest to God think I have this thought, and it really bothers me. And I've never shared it on a show before, but I'm going to share it today because I think it's important.
Thank you.
I think the mind control that they've put on us has made us all mad. Okay? Because I cannot read Ryan's mind right now. I don't know what he's thinking. So if Ryan could, but by all intents and purposes, could be a serial killer, and I wouldn't know it because he's got a cute face and he's sitting there very, humbly, whatever. And because of that, he could be off doing a whole nother consciousness in his own little brain, and I have no way to deal with it except for to find out on a physical level the reaction to he kills my mother. Okay. And then I have to suffer the consequences of it. ET doesn't have anything like that. They're not locked within their own structure. They're not locked in here. And I think over thousands and thousands of years, we have each individually, when we're born with no predisposed whatever. And then we only get the influence of other stuff that's told to us to go from, because we can't experience it in real time with another person sitting right next to us reading their mind and understanding them on a level that is so profound that it's different than this. Okay. So basically all I'm saying is we've all gone mad, and it's the mind control of keeping us separate consciousness that has made us what we are today. And that's why we never get beyond a certain point, is because we have been tethered to our own consciousness individually. And I think it's really important to understand that they can't even think like that. They would go mad in a fraction of a second if they had to be by themselves in their own consciousness. And no other level of ET that I've ever met, or even the thought of God or anybody, they all have telepathic communication. They all communicate as a hive, and we just don't. So whether we're on the lower end of the totem pole, I don't know. We're just in a different type of dimensional reality that is so different than everybody else's that I wouldn't say we're at the bottom and God's up here and they're over there. I'm saying we're what we are. But what scares me the most about all this is that somebody's technology out there was so profoundly clever that they've enslaved us through this mind control. And who's doing it and why they're doing it, and when will we get our telepathic communication back that we probably inherently had when we were created? I don't know. That's the key here. Will we evolve into that? And then we'll be equal with them on all levels at that point.
We have to know what the end game is in order to determine. Tell
me about it.
When, right?
I contemplate that daily. What is the end game here, and who's in control, and why are they doing it?
What I always say to that is we're needed for something. So like if they have to control us, whether it's for a good or bad intention, it could be to protect us too.
That's true. That's true.
They also have the ability to kill us and to harm us and to do all these other things. So there's a purpose for whatever they need us for, however this is happening. And then as we evolve, maybe we're just starting to get better at it,
Yeah.
and then adventure, and like you said with so this will kind of lead up to Stephen's question here. What does Lorraine think of the non-committal, if not actually lame, government report of UFO?
Well, going back to that question, you guys, I'm sorry, it means nothing to me because I'm so far beyond it. I just, I read the whole thing twice and I'm going, okay, basically money, fear. That's all I got out of it. It was just, we need money to understand who's going to eat us. That's basically what it was all about. And we're going to keep looking into it, and then we'll let you know. And it's, you guys, the day that I saw Tom DeLonge in a short little video at a conference in 2015, it had an all-white background. I hope you guys remember this video. He said, "Oh, things are changing. I've been in touch with, people in the military, and everything's going to change, and we're all going to know the truth, and blah, blah, blah." I'm watching this in 2015 and every bullshit meter I had went just sparking away, right? And I'm sitting there going, yeah, in your wildest dreams, that's going to happen. It's going to take 20 years for them to even get to the point where they will start admitting it. Why? Because it takes 20 years for the next generation to mind control into their propaganda. So you got to remember, they want to get rid of people like me. I'm 60. I'll be 64 here in a month. When I'm 84, they're not going to worry about me anymore because I'm almost dead, okay? What they're worried about is everybody between the ages of 20 and 40. And they want them mind controlled. Yeah, there you go. Mind controlled into their story of what a UAP is, how it works, who controls it, and how the American people are going to be dealing with it. And how the military is going to deal with it for you. That's what they want you to do. They'll say, oh, there was a mass sighting over Washington, D.C. again, not like 1952 never happened, right? And here we go. We got all these, and we know who they are, and we're going to shoot them down, and it's all going to be fine. You're going to be okay. I mean, that's where they're heading. They don't care about our connection with ET at all. Anymore. I mean, they do, but there's nothing they can do about it. They finally gotten to that point. So now what they're going to do is they're going to start building a defense grid. I mean, that's their answer to everything is a defense grid. So,
why is it so important that everybody gets confirmation? Why can't we just accept the individual experience, take that and do
exactly that? Well, trust me, the guys in charge that are doing this whole UFO thing, they know it's real. They know exactly what we're all going through. They've met most of us. They've interrogated half of us. And we don't remember that, by the way, just so you know. My labs are very real. And they keep tabs of everybody who's a contactee on this planet. And trust me, they know every one of us. Every one of us. So, and I was told that by somebody very involved, and that's all they could tell me was that they know every single one of us, and they won't tell me how. But I've got a lot of ideas on that one. Anyhow, what was the question?
Well, actually, it's just up in time for commercial break anyway, so we might as well.
We have commercials?
Yeah, we just want a commercial. We're all right here, so we'll pause right here, but we will continue after a message from our professional partners. Also, remember, if you're listening to this live on KPNL Radio or a future podcast, head over to youtube.com/the Experiencer Support Association to see the video that goes with this audio. So you guys listening to this right now, you're not seeing me wave my hands. Remember, you're listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, a podcast by the Experiencer Association. Sorry, the Experiencer Support Association. Lorien, grab that tinfoil hat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I will.
And we'll be right back.
Ryan is one of Canada's leading new UFO investigators. He conducts and oversees UFO investigations on a constant basis and was really taken by his research. He's compiled a tremendous amount of data regarding UFOs in Canada. And just as interesting, he really goes over how UFO investigations are done and what are some of the mistakes that people make when they submit evidence. Note for starters, don't edit your videos or photos before you send them. If you want to hear more follow-up conversation between Ryan and myself, you can go to richardolanmembers.com, where we have a candid conversation on ufology, the paranormal, and more. And remember, while we learn and grow and search for the truth, let's be good to each other.
The same thing that draws aliens to our planet is the same thing that draws us to others. Exploration, curiosity, sustainability of life. That's why we go. It would make sense as to why they're visiting here.
Travis! Quit playing around, man. Get back here. Travis!
The last thing I remember was this numbing shock. Stunning sort of a feeling. Very powerful.
Get away from me!
I was just out of my mind with fear, just screaming the whole time.
It's been theorized that aliens prefer remote areas because they don't want to attract attention. Whatever it is that they're doing, they would want to do that in a less populated area. There are multiple accounts of the same thing from people from all over the world. People that do not know each other, do not live in the same cultures, and they're all looking up, they're all seeing things in the sky. So it would be naive of us to think that we're alone in the universe. My mission is to assist and help those experiencing this phenomenon in such a way that they're able to continue and live with it, and also in a way that it can be measured, quantified, and reinforced within today's society, so that way it can be accepted and no longer viewed in a negative way. One thing that I do value in people is the ability to sense and feel when something is right and when something is wrong. That is a natural ability that we all share. Now, when we combine that with the paranormal and ufological abductions or visits, I have the sensation that these abilities are connected. Not everyone can sense, not everyone can feel. However, those who can are typically connected with something that we cannot explain. And part of my research is not just to investigate the experience, but it's also to understand and study the experiencer to find out what they have in common with other experiencers, to try to figure out what the actual makeup is in order to be on that spectrum. There's a lot of it happening all over the world, and I do not know of any other study that is focusing on the individuals as people, only the phenomenon. All right, welcome back. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hats. If you're enjoying this episode so far, consider becoming a member of our channel or send us a super chat. I'm laughing because I'm reading a screen, but I can see her in the corner of my eyes with that hat on. Your membership will get you bonus content like exclusive videos. It will help us reach our goal of launching our training center, Interstellar, the Academy of Ufology and Paranormal Studies. Also, if you have ever experienced an unexplained event involving the paranormal, UFOs, extraterrestrials, dogman, or any other paracryptid, head over to texacan.org/reporting system. The more reports we get, the more we will understand this phenomenon and how it affects our people. Let the others who have already reported be that example that proves we are making a difference. If it wasn't for these reports, we would not be able to do what we do, and for that, we thank you. So, hello, nice hat.
Isn't that nice? It's a John Lear special, man. Let me tell you, John had about 100 of these made up, and they all have his name on them, and they're very special hats. And I'm very happy I own one.
Right on.
He was so kind to give it to me. Yeah. So, yeah, always cherish it. Anyhow. So I hope you guys like it. You should have some made up for you too.
Well, we probably should, because it's beyond the tinfoil hat. Like once the hat.
Oh boy, that's a problem. You're gonna have to put a big old arrow coming out the top or something. Anyhow, so there's my tinfoil hat, guys, and let's see if we can see the. I don't know if you can read it. It says John Lear tinfoil hat.
I'll just remove
above top secret. There you go. So there you go, folks.
Right on.
That was my tinfoil hat. Very special. Anyhow, very happy to own it.
Let's talk MUFON. Everybody knows my history. I'm pretty sure you know my history. You should. We were around the same time, but you are a section director, which is separate.
Well, I'm actually not a section director. I was demoted.
Oh, okay. What were you demoted
But
to?
that's okay. I don't mind. I still call myself a section director because that's how it started for me. And Ruben doesn't care. Ruben's my Northern California state director. And he says, Lorien, tell anybody who you are, whatever you want to call yourself. So halfway, about 3 years ago, MUFON decided that if you won't get an investigator's license and run a meeting, you can't be a section director because you have to have an investigator's license to be one, apparently. And I refused to get one because I don't want to be pinned down by their version of what an investigation is. And they're very well aware of my opinion about that. And so and they're very kind to me about it. They said, Lorien, you want to investigate your own way? That's fine. If people want to give the investigation to MUFON, please let them. I said, I have no problem with that. I tell people at my meetings, call MUFON all the time. If you want to report something, do it. Because I don't have time to do day-to-day investigations. And I'm certainly not going to sit by the phone for lights in the sky anymore. I won't do that. The only thing I investigate now are people who are having we're talking major contact. I mean, I've got a guy down the street that you wouldn't believe what's going on with this guy. His car was picked up, put in a field, and people saw his car in the field driving to work and him not in it after E.T., a man in black, and a whole bunch of people came to the car after the ship picked it up off the freeway and put it over in a field, and then all these ETs and guys shows up. Anyhow, and people are driving by at his office, see the car in the field and think that he's broken down and over there for some reason, right? I mean, it's like, so he's got witnesses to it, and it's just a wild story. Anyhow, those are the kind of things I investigate now because I want to talk to other contactees who are having extraordinary stuff, and I encourage all of them to write a book, get on podcasts, talk about your experience, get it out there and explain what's happened to you. And I tell them that here's the other thing I tell them, Ryan, don't expect to make a living at it and don't expect anybody to care. It's that simple because no one does. I mean, the bottom line is because of the mind control, you can tell it to 45 people about your experience and maybe one person will care for 5 minutes. And then after that, no one cares anymore because it's not their experience. They don't have time for anything beyond their own. And I'm sorry, but that's just the way humans are. We're kind of selfish in that manner. And I don't blame us because, what's going on with us is the center of our worlds, and that is, so there you go. I mean,
so that's the missing part too. Is we want to bring everyone together. We want to bring Tessa's, the Experience Support Association,
right?
Is the premise of that was basically like you're tested by the explanation of what you just said, and that's basically everything that's not MUFON because MUFON was only good for one thing.
That's right.
And it blows my mind how they've made it so far by missing 90% of everything else.
Exactly.
And
the reason I got demoted was it was because I wouldn't become a field investigator. So what I am called now officially is a MUFON meeting coordinator. And that's fine. Whatever they want to call me, it's all good because.
Do you still have to pay for membership?
Oh, of course. Everybody does. Even the state directors have to pay. Even the board members have to pay. I mean, and then we have the people on the board that are the advisory board, and they pay like $5,000 to be on that board. Did you know that?
Oh, yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
The tax records, they get paid out at the end of the year.
Yep.
I know that.
Yeah. So there you go. I mean,
where do you want to go? Where do you want to go with this? You want to spill?
Yeah. So MUFON has its place. It's for people who are just experiencing something for the first time and need just somebody to help them get over the edge and maybe get to a conference or meet up with other people at a MUFON meeting that need help. Everybody I've ever talked to in the world of ufology met at the very first time ever for anybody else at a MUFON meeting because they're everywhere. And now it's starting to be, there's some meetup groups happening in major cities, which are wonderful. But I can guarantee you those people started meeting at a MUFON meeting somewhere, a while back. And that's how it all began. So MUFON's good for something.
It's a great to start. I've always, on the investigative side, if you want to get into how to investigate a phenomenon, you can learn some stuff. That's coming from me as the director of training for that little bit. Like, you can learn some skills, but once you figure out how to do that, you can apply that on everything else.
Yes, exactly.
It's a very good. And then so with our academy, which we mentioned in our break, and what we're raising our fund for, that is like the next level. So once, like, how do we teach everyone how to investigate all the other phenomena? The
correct
experience, the Bigfoot, paranormal, and how to put it all together and still cater and put that bedside manner in place for the experiencer. Right?
Absolutely.
That's important. Is the experiencer is first, because if we, like this book that I wrote on reports here, that is because of experiencer testimony.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to put all that other stuff first. So I think, what I was coming into with the MUFON part is I just wanted to kind of be like your opinion on how, like, we know how MUFON is, but like, how do you think it's possible to work with other reporting agencies when MUFON?
I think it's always possible. I think that if people out there that are having an experience, I think you should report it to MUFON. I think you should report it to Ryan's group. I think you should report it to your local meetup group. I think you should tell everybody you can. And if you're invited on radio, if you're good enough to be on radio, you guys got to remember, the only reason I'm on radio is because I'm Italian. Okay. You can't shut me up. All right. Everybody knows that. So they're like, MUFON even, they're like, let's let Lorien have that show because we can't shut her up anyhow, so let her talk, And and the other thing about it is you can't be, you've got to be accepting of people's opinion out there. You can't go to these meetings and say, well, okay, I'm gonna give you guys an example. Everybody knows who Billy Meyer is, right? Everybody knows who Michael Horn is. When you see Michael Horn speak, he will tell you Billy Meyer is the only contactee, only true contactee in the whole world. To me, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life, and I can't even believe the man has the nerve to get up there and say something like that. It just makes my skin crawl. But that's what I mean. You can't go, if you guys are going to get onto the radio shows, you're going to do the thing or whatever, talk about your experience, please don't be like, I'm the only thing that's real. I'm one step away from Jesus Christ. I'm this, I'm that. You guys got to be really, you got to be.
So to provide some silly context, but also history, and our listeners know this too. We've had Michael Horn on our podcast. I am still moderating the response back from the comments. And that little disclaimer that you guys started to see at the beginning that shows up for 30 seconds, that like,
right.
That's because of Michael.
See, what can I say? I mean, it's like I had him speak at my conference. I had him speak at my conference in 2013, and I was just appalled. I mean, I loved what he had to say about the Plagiarians and the this and that. I believe that. Hey, I know the Billy Meyer stuff in the beginning was absolutely real. The original stories, but when the people from Germany and places started showing up, and the MUFON people started showing up, and people after that, it got wild because, I think his contacts slowed down, and I believe that they had to keep the myth alive, and they started inventing things. Okay, that's just my opinion, and that's what happens, you guys. You got to remember, like Stan Romanek had all this experience, and then it just all of a sudden kind of stopped, and that's the way it was for Whitley Strieber too. I mean, you can't. It's interesting about ET. ET's on their own schedule. I had profound experiences when I was younger. I had tons of them. I haven't had anything. Well, that's not true because I hang out with other big time experiencers. So the problem I've got is I can't escape it because you get 3 or 4 of us together one night and then ET starts showing up. I mean, they just hang out to see why we're all together and see what we're up to. So it's kind of interesting, but it isn't on demand. It's never on demand. It's always on their schedule. Even if I'm asking for them, I need your help, I need this, I need that. It may be a week before I get an answer. It's not like I can walk in and say, okay. And, this is where I got to say the people that are saved by Jesus Christ, I love them. You know why? Because each one of them tells me I have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ and I talk to him every day. And I'm thinking, isn't that the same with ET? The only trouble is they're getting an answer instantly because they're asking God, right? And in their mind, it's instantly. And in my mind, I know I'm waiting for 5 days for the answer because my ET just isn't on that schedule. So I'm trying to figure out if what they're creating in their own mind isn't their own answer. I mean, is God really on call 24/7? I don't know.
What is the process that you take in order to make your deliberate contact when you
I have my deal is I have to be waking up from a deep sleep. There's that stage, is it delta or theta? I can't remember, but there's one below being awake, and that's where they contact me. They always have, and it's like I see the white light being by the side of the bed, but only like when I'm just falling asleep or when I'm just waking up, or things will happen, and I get these profound downloads. They're just like, you guys would understand who's had them. They're like full 3D color. They're like going to another universe, and then you're popped back in 30 seconds and you've got answers to everything. I mean, they're crazy. And so what I do now is I say to them, I have a real problem I'm dealing with. Will you guys help me figure out the answer? And that's what I did when I got the whole Stan Romanek thing, because they have been showing me for a long time. I'm going to tell you guys another story. Back in 2011, I was at a conference in Los Angeles, and this is the conference that changed my entire life. And I'm not going to go into the whole weekend because the weekend alone is a book that I'm writing. Just that 3 days, I mean, it's mind-boggling what happened in those 3 days. But here's one of the incidents. I had just come back from the conference. It was Saturday night. I had brought my friend with me. We were staying at an Airbnb house. She was in the bedroom next to me. I go into the bedroom and I say, oh my God, I haven't checked my email. And this is after I threw on my pajamas and brushed my teeth and I got in bed. 5 minutes, right? I mean, literally 5 minutes in the door. And she's in there in the other room, and I can hear her doing the same stuff, right? Okay. And I suddenly realized I haven't checked my email all day. So I pop open my laptop, and while I'm opening the laptop, I have a thought. And the thought is this. I wonder if Asolaria, the girl I'm traveling with, remembers the day the helicopter came over my house when I was on the phone with her. I'd had a helicopter, a black helicopter, show up over the top of my house, circling 100 feet over, 50, 75 feet over my house, circling down nose at my house, and we never heard it coming. It just showed up, and it was loud as hell, and I was on the phone with her, and I held up the receiver, and I said, do you hear this? Do you hear it? She goes, oh, yeah, I hear it. And my roommate ran out, and all the neighbors ran out, and they were like, this thing, it just showed up. It appeared. It did not come there. It appeared. So it was cloaked, and it was dampered. So you couldn't hear it, you couldn't see it, and this thing suddenly is there. And it was freaking all of us out. But anyhow, I was thinking about that as I opened the laptop. What does that take? A fraction of a second to think that, right? Within that fraction of a second, a helicopter is over the house I'm at in Anaheim at that Airbnb. And it's low. I can hear it. It's low. The house is shaking. I mean, it's like, oh my God, right? And I'm thinking, what the hell? I stood up, and in the time I stood up, I got a download from the craft. It's not a helicopter, it's a craft. Now I know that, but at the time I didn't. And I get this whole download, and it's like, we can see through your eyes. We know what you're thinking. We can mind control everybody, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it goes on and on. It lasts like 15 seconds, and it's so profound, and they're giving me the answer to everything and how they control us and how we were made. And I mean, it's like, it's so intense, you guys. And by the time I'm done standing up, I'm like, whoa. And I think, oh my God. And I decided to go look at the helicopter. I took all my strength and energy and not fear, to walk to the window to look up to see the helicopter that's making all this noise, right? And I get to the window and I look up, and there's 3 glowing red orbs in the shape of a triangle right outside the window, right above the house. And they're a deep, deep red, like the embers of a fire, deep, deep red. And they're in a triangle formation. And then I look down, and then the next thing I know, I'm saying, oh my God, I'm really tired. I'm going to go to bed. And I back up and I go to bed. So I don't know if there was missing time. I don't know what happened. All I can tell you is that, all I can tell you is that it was very interesting. But the download, now here's the kicker on all this. The next morning I ask everybody, God, did you hear the helicopter? And blah, 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 and everybody's like, there was no noise. So they put that noise in my head just to get my attention from that thought. Mm-hmm. This is how controlled we are, folks. Every thought you have is monitored and can be reacted to. Every thought.
Now, what kind of technology would have to exist to be able to do that successfully for all 7+ billion people on this planet?
All I can tell you is they have shown me how it works.
Yeah.
And it's subatomic. It's a whole different molecular structure that interfaces with us, and they figured it out how to do it thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, maybe millions, and they created us. So they built it into us. That's the only thing I could figure out from what they've given me.
So it's biological. So somehow
it is. Well, if you want to call it biological,
in the water.
Yeah. If you want to call it biological, that's a great way to discuss it, because that's all we can think of what it is. But it's like, where is your memory? So that was one of the things they gave me in a big download, was like, I said, where do we store our memories in our brain? How does that even work? And they said they're not stored within your brain. Nothing's stored within your brain. How's that for an answer? It's all stored within your consciousness, which is connected to your brain, which is not really physical. Right. So how do you, how do you,
yeah, where are we pulling it from? And so how do you know when you make, because you call them ET, is it possible that you are connecting consciously with another human being?
Possibly.
And they are also in the same manner?
That's a real interesting. I'm sorry. I just wanted to address. Somebody asked about channelers and Plagiarians or Palladians. There it is. It's
Yeah, right there,
Chantel.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chantel. I thought that's a very good question, and thank you for asking it. I was told by my angel that came through my wall when I was about 17, something like that. I had my wall open up to a tunnel of bright light, very similar to that behind me. And it was a bright white tunnel, and this woman comes way down the tunnel into my room. And during that conversation, which I don't remember most of it, I do remember this. She said, do not believe in channelers and people. Because I was reading Seth Speaks at the time, the Seth material. Okay. And I believe they picked up on that, of course. And she said, do not believe anything that these people say, only because it's not that it couldn't be true. It's just that you don't know where it's coming from. You don't know who's on the other end of the phone call. You know, and she said, you know us because we're your family. Okay. We're your heritage. We're your DNA. We're your past. We're your future. You know, we're part of your makeup. Okay. Your consciousness. But that other person that may be talking to some, reptilian on a planet, Zimbabwe, you don't know, and you don't know what their agenda is. So always be very careful. So that I've never given any credence to anybody who really channels. Every once in a while, I'll talk to somebody who I think is getting some good information, and I'll have them on my radio show. And but I don't follow anybody. And personally, if you feel the need to follow somebody who does that, then go for it. It's your thing. But for me, I was just told to stay away from it, because I know the truth when I see it, and it's very hard to deal with that for me, So there you go. Oh, good. You feel the same. Yay. Okay. That was great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for acknowledging. I was going to ask that question too, so I'm glad you saw that. Thank you, Chantel, for asking that.
Okay. Now, what were you trying to ask me before I zipped over to Chantel's question?
Well, we're all over the place. I'm just trying to I'm trying to pay attention, because we're like so many possibilities. But I think where I was getting to was the possibility of us in this conscious connection with the ET or the God or whatever the archetype is that we're calling it. Mm-hmm. Why not consider the fact that we're just communicating with each other from other places around the world and not knowing it?
Exactly. And you know what? That goes on too. That goes on all the time. Now I have become involved in the remote viewing community. One of my, and I don't call him, he's not a good friend, but he is a good friend. I really love him very, very much. His name is Lynn Buchanan. I don't know if very many of you know about him, but he's from the original Army remote viewing guys back in the 70s and 80s. And he's not SRI necessarily. He did work with them, but he is definitely the Army's version of the remote viewing program. And they did make a very poor movie about him called The Men Who Stare at Goats. I don't know if many of you have seen it.
I've seen that.
Yeah. And like Lynn has told me, he says the main character, Lynn Cassidy, is a combination of him and three other guys. Their personalities kind of all put together, but it was based on Lynn. And Lynn has told me some extraordinary things about remote viewing. And I've learned a lot from him in the remote viewing area. And even my illness, and the reason I met Lynn is because I went to him with questions about my illness. When 2009, when I got sick, it was very apparent to people around me and the doctors that I had something that they had never seen before, and they were never able to diagnose what it actually was. And they isolated me in a whole wing of the hospital and wouldn't let anybody in near me because they didn't know what it was. So that was very interesting at the time. And I really didn't believe that something extraordinary had happened to me. I was in denial. If it takes me 5 years to figure things out, I'm pretty slow. Okay. You could slap me in the face and say, this is what's happened. And I'd be like, yeah, right. And then 5 years later, I might wake up one day and go, oh my God, what happened to me? Right. I mean, I'm that slow. But I had an interesting experience in the hospital where someone said to me, well, don't cough on me. And they wore the shield and the hazmat and the whole bit. The first 3 days I was in ICU. And when I coughed, they were running for the back of the room. And I'm like, God, what's going on here? They never told me that I had triggered a CDC alert. I found that out from a lady that was in administration at the hospital. Anyhow, I don't want to labor the issue, but another year later, I go back to the ER of the same hospital because I was feeling kind of sick. And they told me, if you're feeling sick, we want you to go, get in here right away because we don't want you to get pneumonia again. That's what they called it. So I get in there the second time, and the doctor shows up I'd never seen before. Turns out she was a traveling ER doctor from Fort Detrick. She had just got out of the Army. She had served in virology at Fort Detrick and maybe other things, bioweapons, who knows. And she was looking for a place to start her practice as an ER doctor. And what you do in that case is all these different hospitals invite you to come and work there for a month until you decide which one you want to work at. So she had 6 different hospitals, and she happened to be at our hospital that month when I showed up. And she's looking at my x-ray, and she's looking at it, and she's looking at it, and she looks at me and she goes, look at this, Lorien. I look at it, and this is the second time I've seen it. I saw it a year before. She goes, look at this. It looks like someone stuffed cotton in there, cotton balls or popcorn, or, they're spherical. And I said, yeah. She goes, that's not normal. And she kind of catches her breath and says, geez, I wonder if this was man-made. And I'm hearing this out of her, right? And she's talking kind of under her breath. And the minute she said man-made, she kind of caught herself and she went, oh, but you know what? You're going to be fine. You don't have anything in your new x-rays, because she was comparing the new one they just took to the old one. She goes, oh, you're fine. You're good. Go home. You'll be fine. And I didn't think much of it at the time. So then another 2 years pass, and a friend of mine runs home, gets on his phone, calls me, and he's out of breath. And I go, why are you out of breath? He goes, I just heard the most extraordinary story. And I said, I got to tell you. He goes, I never believed that because at different points on my radio show, I had said to people, I think something odd happened to me. I don't think I had H1N1. I think I had something bizarre. I don't know what it was. And he says, you're just not going to believe what I heard today. He goes, I was at my hairdresser's, and she was talking to me about what they're relocating all the extra housing at the Presidio this month. And they had talked about it. And she goes, oh yeah, I used to live in one of them. And he goes, oh yeah. And she goes, yeah, I lived in there with a guy who I got up and ran from him one morning. He goes, well, why would you do that? She goes, well, let me tell you the story. So she says, I was laying in bed and the door did not get closed to the bedroom, to the kitchen. I could hear him and his buddy out there talking. And what they had is they had a van, and they were doing what she thought was air conditioning unit, what are they all, sheet metal, where they put in the ducts and all that stuff for the military at different bases. That's what she thought was going on, like Alameda and different places throughout the Bay Area. They would get up, not every day, but some days they'd get up and they'd, put on their overalls and they'd get in the van and they'd go do their thing. So she's hearing them talk, and they start talking about, I don't know if we can get to that air conditioning unit. And the guy goes, well, I got a longer nozzle this time. Maybe that'll work. And they start talking about it. And then they say, well, the spray's got to get in just right, because how in the hell are we going to kill this guy if he doesn't get a good whiff of this, concoction, right? And they're talking about killing a guy, right? With a spray nozzle from a canister that they're spraying into his air duct system of some kind of pathogen. Okay. And she's hearing all this. She's putting two and two together. And she's like, by the time he got home that day, I had packed everything and left him and I was gone. She goes, I didn't want anything to do with this guy. They were a wet works team, or a spray team, if you want to call them that, through the military, and they were killing people with some kind of pathogen through their air conditioning system. Now, when I got my thing, it was through my air conditioning system.
This was during the swine flu, H1N1?
No, this was years before. This was probably Legionnaire's disease time that had happened to her. But his point to this was, there's people actually employed in the military to kill people with pathogens in that manner, because I had turned on my air conditioner and taken a deep breath and felt something hit the back of my throat, and I thought I'd swallowed a bug. Turns out that these bioengineered pathogens do that same kind of thing. They have a coating on them that makes them stick so that you get a full bore attack of whatever it is they're doing to you. Now, I still didn't believe all this, okay? I'm still like, I don't believe it, right? You know, whatever. You can tell me whatever you want. I still don't believe it. Another year or two goes by. I'm on a radio show with my buddy that's a mind control victim. And I told him this story on air, okay? And my guy at the network is ex-CIA, and he says to me, Lorien, you stay on the show. I mean, it's in Skype, and he basically says, stay on the show. I just had a window open, guys. Give me a second. I got to figure out how to close this so I can see you all. There we go. He says, stay on the show afterwards. I want to talk to you. I said, okay, great. So I stay after, and immediately he picks up his microphone, and he says, oh, they gave you the fizzies. And I said, what do you mean, Gene? What do you mean they gave me the fizzies? He goes, yeah, the fizzies. He goes, I used the fizzies to kill presidents of countries. They're dead in 72 hours, just like you were almost dead in 72 hours. And it's a combination of MRSA, pneumonia, fungus, blah, blah, blah. And it grows these balls of hard mucus in your lungs, and they cannot dissolve, no matter what they do. He goes, I don't know how you're alive today. He goes, I have no clue how you're alive. He goes, and I go, that's exactly what I saw in the x-ray. And he goes, that's exactly why I'm telling you this. And then my next question out of my mouth was, Gene, why would they want to kill me in 2009? Because honestly, I hadn't done anything yet. I hadn't even had a radio show. I hadn't opened my mouth. Nobody knew who I was. And he goes, Lorien, don't you know they know the future? And I'm like, you're a CIA guy. What do you know about the future? And he goes, I know they know the future. He goes, I can't tell you how I know. I can't tell you what I know, but I'm telling you, talk to the remote viewers. And I'm like, okay. So the next thing I know, I'm talking to all the remote viewers, and I'm finding out that there's a lot of remote viewing going on. A lot. So somebody saw my name pop up as a troublemaker, and they decided to get rid of me, and that didn't work because I've got protection now. So
that's the thing. Like, if we believe in all of those possibilities of time travel and seeing all these things are true,
exactly.
The attempt was made based on that reality. You still survive, but like the reality had to have been altered, though. That's right. Absolutely. Otherwise, they would make another attempt, I suppose, I would assume.
Well, I believe, like, I've talked to several people about this in the community, the CIA dark world community, and they have told me some very interesting stuff. And I don't know if I really want to go into it on an ET show, but I will tell you guys all this. There is a level where you get to with your spirituality that they can't touch you anymore. I've learned that from a lot of people. It's kind of like an ET insurance policy or a God insurance policy. Once you get to the level where you understand what they're trying to do to you, and they know you know, and you're not afraid of them anymore. And here's the real kicker. I told them out loud to their faces, basically, go ahead and kill me. It doesn't matter, because I've already died. I know what it's like to die. I'm not afraid to die. I'm afraid to die in pain. I mean, I'm not foolish. Dying in pain doesn't sound like fun to me, but I'm not afraid to die because I've already died a couple of times. I know where I'm going. I know what it's like. It's amazing. I'm down for it, And once they realize you're not afraid, and they also realize that you're not going to do anything really out there because they're watching, it's kind of like a simpatico, like everybody just kind of goes their own way then, I'm not going to do anything stupid now because I know they will kill me if I do something really stupid. But now we're all in communication, so it's a very different world. And there are some very evil people running the show, and when they decide someone's got to go, they got to go, and if you're willing to play the game with them, if you're willing to understand their evil, if you're willing to step into the pool, usually they leave you alone, It's the people go ahead.
That's the one side trying to prevent the growth on the other side. So there's
That's right.
So those, like, we're here having this conversation. Like, if you're on the hit list, I'm now associated with you. So, like,
Oh, no, they've known who you are. They know everything about you.
So what I'm saying is there must be also just as much effort into protecting those that are part of the future, and however that future needs to be, because if they can see it, maybe hypothetically speaking, that you didn't screw things up in the future. Maybe you just didn't do your full potential, and this near-death experience was important for you to change and shift your focus so that way you can achieve the goal that they want you to do in order to break that reality.
I was going to start talking about that. I was going to tell you guys about a reptilian experience I had where he told me almost exactly what you just said. He said, if you hadn't had that experience of them trying to get to you, this wouldn't have worked out the way we wanted it to. You wouldn't have done what we wanted you to do. They also said if we hadn't put that rabbit back there when you were 6 years old, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing now. I mean, it's all connected. See, this is the biggest download I ever had, was how it's all connected. Even the evil guys doing what they're doing, because they're disconnected, they don't understand that they've already been seen to do their evil. And sometimes you do die from it because that's part of the game. But sometimes you're allowed to live, and that's part of the game too. I mean, it's all connected. It's just all of our lives, all of our deaths, all of our births, everything we do is all connected through eternity. And it's just interesting to me how it all works. It's just fascinating. And you're right. You're absolutely correct about that. If I hadn't been sick, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. If I hadn't almost died, and maybe that was the key, was them actually doing an evil deed to me, and that was part of it. So who knows?
I'm going to share something with you just because it's on the topic. Have you ever seen anything that looks like this before?
Oh, yeah. Well, not all of it together, but I've seen pieces of it, definitely.
Where have you seen it? And what does it remind you of?
I had a profound evening at the Akashic Records Library in Consciousness, where I have seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Looking at all the symbols in the sprockets, and I've seen 8 or 9 of those in that vision, in that lesson alone.
And what did it mean?
I can tell you this. Every one of them was a geometric study that they were giving me, and they took all of those pieces at different points and put them together with each other to create a consciousness a thought process, a mathematical equation, a molecule, a reality, a thought, whatever, and they became actual realities amongst themselves. I like if they took a square and a circle and a triangle. Here's my main one: square, circle, triangle. They put together, and they turned it into a torrid spinning so fast that it became a donut shape, and within that donut shape became another whole world.
Huh. So,
and they told me every one of these, and you put them together in different combinations and realities and depth, 3D, 2D, 1D, whatever, they all become their own thing. Their own, like, you could create humans out of this if you needed to.
So, all right. Well, I'm going to have to share some more. So, like,
okay.
So this is that in 3D.
Oh, cool.
This is that about to be in motion. Let me see if I can show you this in motion here. Let me see here. And I'll explain to you why I'm showing you this in a minute.
Okay.
I'm going to slide this over here.
Oh, here I just got to answer Hairless Primate real quick. He says, we're evolved primates. How far back did they start to manipulate our DNA if they created us? Jesus, that had to be from the second they thought about creating us, Hairless. That's my theory on it. Because one of the downloads, they basically said that to me, is just that the second we became a thought process to them, our DNA was completely manipulated. I mean, just to create us, they had to do that, because we are pieces of them, which is very fascinating. Oh, and by the way, just so you guys know this, I found out from somebody in a weird office in the government that there is an office dedicated to tracking everybody who has Rh negative blood, because they know that we are the last rendition of the tweaking of DNA by the last ETs that were here.
Huh.
So they know who we all are. Absolutely.
So on that, this is that same 2D object just in motion. I know that's loud, but what does that look like?
Oh, it looks like a UFO, but
exactly. So that's just putting that same object in 3D motion. This is me playing around with parts. And the reason why I'm asking you that is because you've been talking about downloads and all this other stuff. This is a download that I've received.
Oh, cool. I love it.
This is all I got. Everything else I just showed you was myself trying to understand what it means.
Sure.
So why isn't somebody like taking me out? And why,
Well,
what does that mean?
Now you guys there's something very important here. I think that my consciousness and who I am and the people I deal with from various different levels. See, I just don't play in the UFO field. I'm a big JFK researcher. I'm starting a JFK TV channel as well as the Make Contact TV. I want to know the truth about deep, dark, secret places within the CIA, NSA, and all that. I talk to people who have been there, done that, and I really am very curious about how they're all interconnected, because the ETs told me they were. So I'm rattling cages in places I probably shouldn't be rattling cages. At least I did back in 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14. I produced 3 mind control conferences. And that was bizarre. You'll never see me. Well, I'm not going to say you'll never see me do it again, but I learned my lesson that I'm not ever to touch that area again, because that's the area I'm absolutely sure that's why they didn't want me doing what I was doing. So there you go. I know now where to put my toe in the pool and where not to, and don't go into the deep end unless I'm prepared and got a scuba gear and an oxygen tank. Okay, and I'm well protected. So it's a whole different world for me now, and it's only a decade or so later. But the point is this: I learned my lesson the hard way, and now I know what they're doing. I understand where I can go. I know what I can do, and there's lots of things you can do.
So what is your plan?
Getting on a radio show.
What is the next step for you then? You know what not to do. What are you doing?
I can't really talk about what I actually do because I don't want, I don't want the world to know that. But I will tell you this: I'm actively on a 24/7 basis, always trying to make the world a better place.
Good. That's good.
There you go. And I think, and like I said, love is the key. So there's a lot of ways to infuse love in places that doesn't usually accept it. And once you get that going, there's a lot of doors that open for you. And every one of us, by the way, every experiencer, every person watching the show today, you guys are all doing it too. And most people don't realize what a good ambassador you guys all can be. And just by your group alone, Tessa, I mean, this is phenomenal. I think all of you guys are doing an amazing job, and everybody listening to the show, you guys are, by being here, you're expanding your consciousness. You're able to tell people, your friends, your family, I listened to this amazing show the other day. It doesn't have to be me, but somebody. And I think you guys should find something interesting in it. Maybe you should listen to it too. That's all you got to do. If you do that one thing and share one little show, one little thing, one little topic, one movie, just do it like once a week. You guys are making a huge difference. Huge difference. It's just, we've got to get it out there, and we've got to get people to understand that the contactee is the bottom line for ufology, and we need to be heard, and we've got to organize. If we don't organize, if we don't do what Ryan's doing, we are never going to get beyond this crazy military stuff that's going on, and this, like that Senate report and all that insanity. We're the truth, we're the light, we're the love, we're the reality, and we need to get out there. We're the apostles, We've got to get out there and spread the word. And we've got to do it in a very calm, collected, non-crazy manner. Because I'll tell you what, when I first got involved in this ufology field, I had so many people coming to me, and it's not their fault. I've learned that it's a mind control process that is put upon them. But there are these people like, the gray was in my bedroom, and they took my DNA and they made babies, and I'm all freaked out. And can you help me? Right? If you act like a victim, everybody is going to push you away. You've got to stop doing that. I tell everybody, demand your power back from ET, start making a conscious connection, have a conversation, and do not be a victim. And do not go to other people in the community and say, how do I make it stop? What do I do? I need 45 regressions. I need, get a grip, and I hate to say that. I sound like a real taskmaster when I say that, but I tell everybody, get a grip, look me dead in the eye, and say to me, if you're, around me or anybody next to you that's a ufologist, say, I promise I will never be a victim by my ETs again. It's that simple. You just make that commitment, and you start demanding they have a conversation and stop doing the horrific stuff to you that they're doing if you find it horrific. The other thing is to just accept it. I go to the doctor once a year. He pokes and prods. I don't like it, but it's the way it goes. I got to do it. So if that's what the Greys are doing and you got to do it, just accept it and let it be. Don't let it interfere with your life, And I'm sorry, I'm sounding pretty harsh, but I really think this is a blessing, and you've got to start taking the Gray by the tail if they've got one.
No, you're on point. It's a powerful message too. Like the talking point, the main point for us, for you, for everybody, you listeners that are watching right now, is like, you guys are here listening. We are doing everything we can to help you understand what we understand or what we know of this phenomenon. If it wasn't for you tuning in, if it wasn't for you asking these questions, and if it wasn't for the other volunteers that, like Chantel, my wife Priscilla, Tim, the Demon Guy, Alex, all you guys are TESSA. We are all TESSA. And that is the Experiencer Support Association. That is anyone who supports any experiencer. And what's very, very important, whether you report to MUFON or you report to us or you report to your neighbor, is that you don't keep it inside, because that's right. is where the pain and where the and where all these symptoms reside. And if you come to peace with it, or at least acknowledge its existence, and surround yourself in a group of like-minded people, whether you follow us or Fenton, is it Fenton Files? No, Fenton Perspective. And just go where you need to go and report not just to one person, report to everyone, because get their perspective and come to your own conclusion for what works for you, because you are living
absolutely with it. And just don't be don't be a victim, you guys. You're stronger than that, and the ETs love you. I mean, no matter what they're doing to you, they do love you, or they wouldn't be communicating with you and giving you this profound experience that has changed your life, and always for the better if you look at it that way. Always.
All right, so we got 5 minutes or so, or a little bit longer.
Oh, you do? Oh, great.
I'd like you to tell everybody about your UFO con, your radio.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay, cool.
Let everybody know what you're up to, and let them follow you home.
Yeah, that'd be great. I am starting a Roku, Apple TV, Fire TV, out there TV channel. It is subscription like Netflix. And we're starting some amazing shows. And I'm still trying to figure out how to get Ryan and Tessa involved. They might have their own show. And I'm very excited about that, because I really want to promote the group. I think Ryan's on to something.
I didn't know you were considering us. Thank you.
Oh, of course. Always.
Statement live on air. We'll hold you to that.
Yeah. But I'm developing programming, and I think I've come up with some really fun shows for you guys. The first one out of the gate is called Orb Hunters. And it's my buddy who is the top orb specialist, I would say, in the world. And the reason I believe that is because Robert Bigelow himself hired this guy to come to the NIDS Skinwalker Ranch and figure out what was going on with the orbs with our other buddy, Dr. Bruce Cornett. So it's going to be a fabulous show. And a lot of people aren't going to like us very much, because we've already done a test run with a person who sent me in video and 45 pictures of her place where she thought all these orb activities and things were going on. And of 44 pictures, 43 of them were spider webs, spiders, bugs on a web, blah, blah, blah. We were able to explain away 43 of them, and pollen and God knows what else it was. But there was one picture where we could not explain it. So just because you are disappointed in the fact that all this activity may or may not be going on at your place, it doesn't mean you're not having some kind of activity. It just means that maybe those pictures aren't capturing the right activity. So that's what the show is going to be about. It's going to be about not debunking, but actually proving to people that and training people to see what a dust orb is, a flare orb, the reality of what is really out there. And then if you're still having something that we can't explain, then we can't explain it, and it could be paranormal. So there you go. So it's going to be a great show. I'm really excited about that. The other show that we're doing is called Transcending Realities. I'm not going to tell you much about it, but I'm the star of that show, so I'm very excited. And then we have the Fenton interviews coming, which is going to be my podcast where I interview people in the community about their extraordinary experiences. And then all of my conferences from the last 10 years will be the first item up for grabs on the network, and we're going to release them like every month. You'll get a new conference or whatever for a while to give you some content, and then we're going to start filming our shows. And I've got people. Oh, Michael Schratt's doing a show called UFO. What do they call that when it's like when people see like the Hudson Valley experiences where they had all the flaps or whatever. And he's going to talk about Maury Island. He's going to talk about Roswell. I mean, every crash that was out there, they're going to talk about it from a scientific point of view and the technology. And he has drawn and built models of every UFO out there that we can get our hands on. So we're going to have a kind of scientific show about UFOs. It'll be a lot of fun. And so I mean, it's going to be a really fun channel, and I hope you guys subscribe. We're trying to keep the cost as low as possible so that more people can get the information.
Where can they find it to subscribe?
Well, they can't yet because we haven't launched yet, but it will be